aka the War Champion, is back in the building. And today, folks, you know what we're going to be doing today? We're going to be talking about the top 10 annoying enemies that we felt were in Kingdom Rush. But folks, I got a special partner with me. Guess who it is? It's Voduke, folks. He's in the building, folks. We're gonna have a good conversation. See, you played Kingdom Rush for quite a while, folks, and you've encountered quite a few annoying enemies out here. And today, that's what we're going to talk about. We're gonna have a good, detailed conversation on these enemies and which ones that you might have encountered throughout your experience playing Kingdom Rush Frontiers that was quite annoying to put up with. It's so many to choose from, but folks, we eventually had to dwindle it down and pick from a horde of enemies in this game. So which ones did we choose, folks? Which ones did we choose? Was it that enemy that we see in the photo? Maybe. Who knows for sure? But the best way to know is we're going to talk about it right now, folks. The top 10 annoying enemies in Kingdom Rush Frontiers that me and Voduke happened to collaborate on and decide which were the ones. Let us find out. Number 10. We start off with the Greenfin. Folks, the Greenfin's number 10 at hit points 450. This is all, by the way, with respect on veteran difficulty. Physical attack damage 6 to 14. Physical attack rate is 1 hit every second. They wear no armor. They possess no magic resistance. Their speed is fast moving, and their special ability is that they are able to trap soldiers in nets. They are pretty annoying. This is an enemy to me that's like similar to that of a wolf in Kingdom Rush. It's an enemy that one single Greenfin you can underestimate. They might end up slipping through and end up ruining the gameplay for you. That is why I feel that this enemy appears pretty frequently, as it's not as durable as a Devil Tide, but it's definitely an enemy that they can send more of, as it's pretty tanky at 450 hit points. It's fast moving, and it's an enemy that can seriously ruin your gameplay if you take your eyes off of hordes of Greenfins. So anyhow, folks, let us hear what my partner Voduke had to say about this enemy.
The game treats these enemies as the basic enemy type in Rising Tides, sending them out in waves the most often. But unlike the other basic enemy types, the Greenfin has a lot more HP as well as fast movement speed. The fact that they are fast implies that using barracks to stall them is a good move, but barracks lose their versatility the second they get into contact with Greenfin. Nets keep them from fighting back, which is bad enough on its own. But the worst side effect of these nets is how soldiers can't move to engage with new enemies until they break out of the nets. This effectively negates the usefulness of barracks against groups of Greenfin, who usually come in packs greater than 3 anyways. You have to go out of your way to find ways to stall them, using reinforcements, heroes, necromancers, and maybe even waste disposal. It's because of the effort that it takes to make sure these enemies don't leak that I consider them among the most troublesome in the entire game.
Number 9 on our list. Excellent breakdown there. We move right along to number 9. We picked the Pukai Rider. The Pukai Rider's hit points consists of the rider having 250 hit points. That's the Savage Warrior himself. And then it's the Pukai Bird having 150. The range attack damage ranges between 40 to 80. That's a lot. Range attack rate every 1.5 seconds. They wear no armor, no magic resistance. Their speed is slow whilst hunting, but upon death of the rider, when the bird is fleeing, it moves fast. And of course, as I mentioned, the special abilities, when the bird dashes for the exit upon the death of its rider. This enemy, for me personally, is a very annoying enemy, as it's just that the power is 40 to 80 attack damage. That's enough to, decimate even fragile and even strong heroes, such as Grawl. And it's enough to, just to do a deleterious damage to even durable units like Auric and such, and even Deidra, as they possess high armor. But this enemy, for sure, you can't sit still with it. And then with that combination of the bird, dashing for the exit, you have extra work. And plus, I don't believe you can insta kill the whole bird at once. You have to kill the rider first, plus afterwards you have to kill the bird. So to me, that's enough for it to make it pretty annoying. They're not super bad to kill off, but they're definitely annoying. Let's turn things over to Voduke and hear what he had to say.
Of all the enemies in the series, one of the most dangerous traits for them to have is being a flying enemy. Bypassing barracks, not being targeted by artillery, and often drawing the aggro of archers and mages. Another one of the most dangerous traits for an enemy to have is having a ranged attack, allowing the enemy to kill barracks easily and often group up out of range of most towers because they're attacking the choke point from a distance. Pukai Riders combine these two traits to make a truly dangerous enemy. For example, when ranged enemies cluster up together, the best way to deal with them is by using area damage, like rain of fire or artillery. But because there are also flying enemies, artillery can't aim at them unless you invest a huge amount of gold to get a mecha with Wasp missiles, which might not always be viable. Often the best area damage source is rain of fire. However, its long cooldown makes it insufficient for constant swarms of these enemies. Plus, it needs very precise aim in order to kill the normal Pukai that spawns afterwards. These ones can get through really easily without proper air defense. But even proper air defense isn't enough, usually forcing the player to use units to stall the riders. This often means getting Templars, which are expensive and less useful for other purposes. So, once again, you have to go out of the way to prepare specifically for these enemies. One fun fact about Pukai Riders, which is more of a fun fact about Ulrich, is that ranged attacks directed at Ulrich will trigger spiked armor to hit the enemy he fights in melee combat. So, if Ulrich is fighting a Gorillon and gets hit by a Pukai Rider spear, it will deal damage to the Gorillon. Groups of Pukai Riders are so dangerous that it actually allows Ulrich to deal several hundreds of damage to an enemy if he can tank the attacks. This is a testament to how powerful Pukai Riders are, which means that even when you invest in Templars to stall them, that defense won't hold for very long. These are a very dire enemy, which puts them above the Greenfin in my opinion.
Number 8. Excellent breakdown there. Didn't know that with respect to Ulrich in that the way the Pukai Riders attack there. But thank you there, Voduke, for that. Moving right along. Number 8, the Blood Trickster. Hit points 800. Physical attack damage 15 to 30. Physical attack rate 1 hit every second. Or they possess a ranged attack damage of 30 to 50. Ranged attack rate is every 2 seconds. They possess no armor. They do, however, possess medium magic resistance, as I saw on the website. I didn't know that. I believe that they said it was 50 or 60%, if I'm not mistaken, one of those two percentages. Their speed is slow, and their nauseating ability is that they are able to revive fallen savage brethren and reanimate them back into savage zombies. And the thing that is very irritating about them, which makes them similar to the Demon Lord and Kingdom Rush originals, that they're able to perform this skill while being blocked. This is an enemy that is a troublesome enemy, and it's just annoying for that special ability of them able to do that. They can also, as you, if you have even if in range of a Necromancer tower, they can basically steal from the Necromancer tower in the sense of you not being able to reanimate them as zombies. And they overall, they just have those savage zombies, you know, when they get reanimated, they have attack power of 30 to 50, which are stronger than most of the stronger than the savage warriors and the savage hunters and any of the savage brethren, shall I say. They're very powerful, and it just creates extra work. And that's for this enemy for sure deserves to be on a top 10 list. Very annoying to put up with. Anyhow, let's hear what Voduke had to say.
Unlike other spawner enemies like the Saurian Savant, the Blood Trickster doesn't even have the advantage of getting to spawn an unlimited number of enemies. Tricksters are restricted to spawning zombies only from the corpses of other savages, but I actually think that this restriction makes things worse. It gives the game designers an excuse to make the enemy all the more powerful, and savage zombies really are dangerous enemies. It's hard to silence Tricksters, since Totems of Silence will usually just spawn too far ahead of them. This is another instance of ranged enemies being tricky, but luckily, they can be countered by artillery, since blowing enemies up with explosives gets rid of the body, preventing it from being raised as a zombie. It just has to be the finishing blow, which means that if other sources of damage kill the enemy instead, the enemy can still be revived as a zombie. When possible, I like to try to focus my other sources of damage towards killing the Trickster itself. Melee heroes are really good for this, but if the Trickster is covered by other ranged enemies, then there's nothing you can do but hope that you have the firepower to withstand an army, plus a second army of zombies. That's what makes this enemy even more dangerous than the previous two enemies mentioned so far.
Great breakdown there. Excellent. Moving right along. Number 7 on the list. Saurian Death Coil. Hit points 500, physical attack damage 12 to 22, physical attack rate 1 at every second. Ranged attack damage, it's 100 true damage. Ranged attack rate, they attack every 2.2 seconds. They possess no armor, no magic resistance. Their speed is fast moving, and they obviously, as most of you know, they possess a very long ranged attack. This enemy, for sure, most of you, I'm sure maybe you may have different feelings about this, but they are for sure a top 10 enemy in the game of Kingdom Rush Frontiers. That long-ranged attack can drive you crazy, and for sure it's inevitable that you're going to encounter it, because on the stage that they appear on, the solo stage of Darklight Depths, they already supply you with the Dwarf Hall, the Barracks Tower, so you're going to experience this Saurian Death Coils special ability firsthand, no matter what. But the thing that most people, I'm sure, if you figure out how to deal with this death coil, is you get it clumped, hordes of them clumped up, and then you rain a fire to get rid of them, which is why they probably aren't so bad. That's probably why me and Voduke probably reasoned that they're not super bad to get rid of, but they are definitely annoying, and you can't sit still with this enemy. You have to get rid of it, because otherwise, if you leave it loitering around, it's just going to drive you crazy. And people I know, they rage quit because of this enemy. I've known several people to do it because of that long, extensive, range that they possess. So, folks, that's where we have him ranked at on this list. Let's hear what Voduke had to say and share some of his details and experience.
What is there to be said about this enemy that hasn't been said already? Of all the ranged enemies in the series, these ones are by far the most memorable. I don't think about Darklight Depths without thinking about Saurian Death Coils. The entire strategy of this level is pretty much defined by them. You can't put your units too far out, or else Death Coils will spend the whole time sniping them. You can't bring heroes with low max HP, because they will get killed immediately. You even have to go out of your way to try to build towers up front so that they can kill the Death Coils before they get too close. And because of how high Death Coil's range is, too close means only about 10 to 20% progress towards the exit. Based on this information, it might sound like this is the worst enemy ever, but thankfully, they are made less threatening by nature of being Saurians. The Saurian faction gives so much gold so quickly that you can easily afford to build enough towers to deal with everything in a timely manner. If there wasn't enough gold to counter them, the Death Coils would be far, far higher on this list. But as they stand, they are still a highly threatening enemy.
Very good point. Very good point there, Voduke, as he made mention about the fact that you do get a lot of bounty. That's very true, especially with the Saurian brethren. If you compare them like to other, the savage enemies, the savage warriors, for instance, only return like 15, which is like the basic unit for the savage brethren. But if you compare that to like a brew guard, the brew guard returns 20 bounty, and that's the basic unit for the Saurian brethren. So definitely, that's a very good point he made there. You can rack up a lot of bounty killing off those enemies. I mean, think about it, the Night Scale and the Darters, they're returning 20 and 25 bounty when you kill them off. So that's enough to rack up a bounty to set up powerful towers, and that's a good way to set up your towers to kill off those death coils. Excellent point made there. Moving right along, number 6 on the list. Yes, the Red Spine. Oh yes, hit points, the Red Spine, 1700 hit points, physical attack damage 25 to 35, physical attack damage rate, they attack every second, ranged attack damage, an immense 100 to 130, their ranged attack rate every 3.1 to 3.2 seconds. That's the range. Apparently that's set that on the website. That's how they had listed at. Not sure why, but I guess that's so. They wear no armor, no magic resistance. Their speed is medium, and the special ability they possess, I guess you wouldn't really call it a special ability, but it's basically an ability, shall I say. That's that ranged attack as they throw that javelin. This enemy, for sure, I personally have underestimated that enemy's ability. You know that ranged attack of I didn't know it did 100 to 130 ranged. That's physical damage, by the way, not true damage, but it does immense damage. And even heroes like Boneheart and Ashbite and even durable heroes, when you get packs of these red spines, they're really irritating and frustrating. They're deceptively tougher than you think, as they don't have any armor, but they have those high hit points. You can highly underestimate them. That's, for me personally, I underestimated this enemy because of the fact they didn't have armor, but they have a high amount of hit points, and they're pretty durable with 1700 hit points. But that ranged ability, when they get out of the water and they just they just immediately resort to throwing those javelins, they can really mess up your defenses pretty easily. And it's just an enemy that I feel like you can underestimate because of the fact he doesn't have any armor. It's 1700 hit points. It's not easy, and I personally, from experience playing stages with them on it, from the beach stages, they're pretty irritating to deal with. So they were 6th on the list, and that's what we agreed on. So let's hear what Voduke had to say on this.
Red spines are deceptively dangerous. Unlike other big enemies, they don't have heavy resistances to make them tough to kill with one damage type. Instead, they just have really high health, making them tough to kill no matter what. On top of that, their ranged attack isn't the type of attack that makes them get stuck shooting at enemies. Instead, they use it approximately every 3 seconds, dealing enough damage to practically insta-kill most basic units. Therefore, even with average melee attack damage, they have the capabilities of dealing fatally high damage to units. In groups, they are pretty much unstoppable with how much damage their spears deal. Luckily, in practice, things like Rain of Fire and the Shrine of Ragnos exist to help make them less problematic. But they still pose a significant enough threat to even make you wonder whether or not to use those powerful attacks on them instead of another tough enemy like the Black Surge. Speaking of which...
Good point there. Almost pretty much identical to what I mentioned there as well. Excellent point, Voduke. Moving right along, as he had mentioned, the Black Surge, that leads us to number 5 on our list. The Black Surge. Yes, folks, the Black Surge possesses 1200 hit points, physical attack damage 30 to 50, physical attack rate every hit, they attack every second. They possess high armor. I believe it's 70%, 80. I'm not sure on the percentage, but I know it's high armor, no magic resistance. Their speed is slow. They're nauseating. They are really nauseating with the abilities to disable the towers within their range. And of course, how could we ever forget, they retreat in their shell when their hit points drop below 30% of the health that they possess, and they become invulnerable to all attacks during the time. So yes, folks, for sure, this enemy had to be on a top 10 list. I mean, what can I say? It disables the towers. It's the worst thing you can literally put up with. I mean, the disablement, I believe it's like 5 to 6 to 7 seconds on how long they disable the towers. But if they get near the exit and you're still battling, let's say, a bluegill or a blood shell, it's a nightmare with that enemy. If you had barracks and let's say the barracks get killed off and the tower's disabled, you can't, the barracks are not, no units are going to come out of that barrack until the disablement wears off. So definitely, and then to make matters worse, you try to kill the enemy off and then he just jumps right in the shell. It's really irritating to put up with, and I can't see anyone not seeing this enemy as worthy of being on a top 10 list. Maybe you might perceive it as maybe the most annoying, who knows for sure, but definitely deserves to be on a top 10 list. Anyhow, let's hear it from Voduke.
Of all the enemies in the series, I believe that the Black Surge is the one with the most tricks up its sleeve, or rather, the most tricks up its poopy little shell. First, it has such high armor that most regular attacks aren't very effective against it. That's annoying for any enemy, but this is just the beginning for the Black Surge. This enemy can block towers, using a spell that recharges faster than it lasts. This means that it keeps towers in range blocked 100% of the time. It can block more towers as it progresses down the path, while the previous towers stay blocked for a couple seconds more. And even if the Black Surge is stunned or otherwise trapped from using its ability for a few seconds, it will be able to block towers again in very little time at all. This makes the Black Surge a very high priority target to kill right away, but that's not an option most of the time. Unless you can deal high enough burst damage during an animation or insta-kill it, the Black Surge would not let you kill it. Instead, once it gets to low enough health, it goes into Gaka mode and heals most of its health while being invulnerable to any more damage for a long time. Port Tortuga really showcases just how tough Black Surges are. Even if you silence them so that they can't block towers, the invulnerability and high armor are still a problem, and dealing with multiple Black Surges is a nightmare. You have to go out of your way to use battle mechas so that they can keep attacking the Black Surge, and hope that it will be enough firepower to kill them even after they heal themselves. Luckily, Black Surges aren't as bad on iOS, since mechas can be rallied and upgraded even if they're hit by the blocking spell. But on Steam, Android, and the Switch, it completely blocks towers. I think about this enemy in particular every time I play a level in Rising Tides, which goes to show just how big of a deal the Black Surge is. That's what makes it worthy of this place on the enemy list.
Excellent breakdown there, Voduke. Excellent breakdown. Moving right along, folks. Number 4 on the list. Giant Wasp Queen. The Giant Wasp Queen possesses 400 hit points. The physical attack damage rate that's not applicable to it. They possess no armor, possess no magic resistance. The speed is medium, and the special ability she possesses is that obviously she's a flying unit, and also she's able to spawn 5 giant wasps upon death. Now, this is an enemy I never really had much problem with, but I can see why we both agreed that this enemy was worthy to be on the list. It is pretty annoying, in my opinion, upon death. It just creates extra work for you to have to kill off those pesky giant wasps already as it is, because they're flying units. But, 400 hit points, you can never ever underestimate that as for any flying unit, shall I say. And plus, you have to also keep in mind when dealing with flying units, you always have to play with that in your perspective and set up towers accordingly to deal with flying units as it is. But 400 hit points is never easy to underestimate. And then on top of that, upon its death, if you have to kill off another 80 hit point enemy, by the way, 5 of them, which all add up to, they all accumulate to 400 hit points. That's basically 800 points in total that you have to get rid of. So the Giant Wasp Queen, I can see why we both agreed that this was on the list. So let's hear what Voduke had to say.
Now this is an enemy that may not seem so bad looking back after having beaten the game. After all, how bad could an enemy from the earliest levels in Frontiers really be? But if you were to replay Frontiers from a fresh save file on Veteran, the flying enemies would probably give you a really hard time. This enemy takes a whopping 5 lives, and even if it is killed, it spawns another 5 giant wasps, which means that it stays threatening even after the first phase of its health has been depleted. In total, it actually has 800 HP on Veteran when you add up the 5 inner enemies, making this the tankiest flying enemy overall. And since it appears early on in the game, the player has less options to deal with it. Gold is harder to come by, there are less level 4 towers to choose to build, and star upgrades are at a minimum. Returning when everything is stronger will of course make the enemies easier, but the truest testament to their power is when they reappear in Endless Mode. With the exponential growth to their HP, they become mini-bosses of their own, and the wasps inside make things even worse. Because they take so many lives, these enemies are one of the easiest ways to lose, second only to the mini-bosses themselves. Heavy flying defenses need to be prepared in the back to deal with them, so much so that when I take Endless Mode seriously, I worry about this enemy more than I do about spiders. Even if it's an unpopular opinion, this insect bugs me so much that it has to rank this high on the list.
Oh, that was a good clip there. Spiders. But that's a good point he makes there. It takes away 5 lives, the Queen Wasp itself. Good point there. All right, folks, moving right along to number 3 on the list. And that enemy goes to the Vampiressa. Yes, the Vampiressa has 1,000 hit points, physical attack damage 20 to 40, physical attack rate 1 hit every second. She possesses no armor. She does possess high magic resistance, 90% to be exact. Her speed is medium. Special ability, she possesses the ability to life drain. So she drains 150 hit points from the soldier and recoups double the amount of their health. And then 50% drain damage increase and 100% hit point recoup increase during the full moon. So basically, basically pretty much what I mean by that is that when she does the attack, she takes away 150 from the soldier, and then she's gonna return 300 for health. But when under the full moon, that damage increases 50%. So I believe it's 225 that she'll take away from the soldier, and then recoup a total of 450 under the full moon. This is very, to me, she's definitely an annoying enemy to put up with, because of the fact that, you know, she adds to the hordes of magic resistant enemies that appear. So she only appears on that Dust Chateau stage with the werewolves and the Lycans. So that's the other horde of magic resistant enemies there as well. But, you know, it's the fact that they come in swarms, and, you know, Lucretia is definitely the best, you know, the best way to get rid of her, as her special ability does immense damage to them. And just that jacket spin move that she does on them, that's the best way, the most efficient way to deal with them. But you have to micromanage with her really well. And it becomes really irritating when you have to keep, you know, micromanaging to take care of this highly magic resistant enemy that's also durable and can also, you know, drain hit points from your units. So you always have to keep an eye on this enemy when they appear in the battlefield. It's definitely a frustrating enemy, and they just can cause a lot of problems and easily overwhelm you if you're not prepared defensively with this enemy. So let's hear what Voduke had to say.
The Vampiressa is another example of an enemy who only appears in one stage, and like the Saurian Death Coils, they make their presence known. Although they don't dominate the map in the same way that Death Coils do, the manner in which they have to be countered is far, far more demanding. There isn't enough gold or tower space to properly defend against all of the ghosts with physical immunity that appear on the right side of the map, while also taking care of everything on the left. You have to focus your towers in some areas, and let hero micro and spell usage do the rest. But that sort of micro is much harder to pull off compared to just building towers to counter the enemies. Lucrezia has to be microed masterfully in order to kill the waves of enemies, and even then, her attack has a damage range that can sometimes leave Vampiressa with a little bit of HP remaining on Veteran, giving them the chance to heal and keep moving forward. If that happens, mages are powerless against them, and some other form of damage is needed. It can get really chaotic really fast, especially in challenges. Therefore, this is an enemy that is extremely tough, and in a way that no other enemy really is. That's why it ranks so high on this list.
Good point there. Moving right along, number 2 on the list. The Bloodshell. The Bloodshell possesses 3,200 hit points, physical attack damage, and immense 100 to 120. Physical attack rate 1 hit every second. They possess great armor, the equivalent of a Dark Slayer at 95%. They have no magic resistance. Their speed is medium, and their special abilities that they are immune to artillery. So it's partially true that they're immune to artillery, because technically the dwarf can still damage it with the furnace that furnace can still damage it, but it's also immune to the insta kill as well. So you can't insta kill this enemy with the artillery of using that core drill by that dwarf. Definitely, in my opinion, it's definitely a troublesome enemy to put up with, because, you know, it's, you know, 3,200 hit points, great armor. It really helps if you had a hero like Dante to play with, because you can exploit Dante's special ability of reducing its armor to none, making it very easy to kill off. But, you know, it's definitely annoying, because when it shows up, it grabs your attention and it forces you to have to use mage towers to really efficiently get away with it, as well as the Shrine of Regnos to really do some serious damage to him. Because any other way, you're really not going to, you know, harm this enemy, unless you have the assassins. You know, the assassin could potentially insta kill, but that's all luck based there. But it is also its other counterpart, the Blue Gale, which is highly magic resistant. They appear on the stages where you have to utilize 2 types of different towers, the physical damaging tower and the mage tower. So it's pretty annoying when you think about this enemy appearing, because of that high damage of them being able to obliterate your barracks, but at the same time, that great armor and that high amount of hit points that they have, making them very durable and just a huge pain to get rid of. So let's hear what Voduke had to say about this enemy as well.
So far, there haven't been any giant enemies on the list, but it would be a mistake not to include the Bloodshell here. If I can do a little math for a second, the Bloodshell has 3,200 HP on Veteran. It also has 95% armor. This means that it only takes 5% of all physical damage. Therefore, in order to kill a Bloodshell with pure physical damage, you would have to deal 20 damage for every 1 point of HP, or 64,000 physical damage total. It's like fighting an endless mode mini-boss. Of course, tackling it with pure physical damage isn't how you're supposed to counter a Bloodshell. A heavily armored enemy, who is immune to artillery including core drill, is just begging to be attacked with magic and true damage. But in Frontiers, mages can only do so much without an insta-kill. Having such high HP means that mages still have to land a lot of attacks to actually take a Bloodshell down. Even the Shrine of Regnos with the Totem of Weakness can't insta-kill them. Another option is to try to use Assassins, relying on their very small insta-kill chance when Death Strike is upgraded. If the Assassins can hold out against the Bloodshell's 100 to 120 damage per second, they can emerge victorious from combat. Either way, these tactics can take a long time to work, but they're the best options available. I won't count insta-killing them with a hero, since not everybody has Shatra, and the RNG involved in using Mirage and Ashbite just isn't reliable enough to work against the many Bloodshells that appear later on. This is an enemy who can withstand a lot of firepower even from a strategy tailor-made to counter them, and for that reason, they are the second most dangerous enemy on this list.
All right, excellent points made there by Voduke. And moving finally to the number one enemy on our list that we both agreed with. Number one is the Abomination. We have agreed that the Abomination was number one on the list. Hit points 2,500, physical attack damage 45 to 55, physical attack damage rate every 2 seconds. They possess low armor of 30%. Magic damage is none, their speed is slow, and the nauseating ability that they have is that they explode upon death, dealing 250 true damage. So this enemy for sure is it's really annoying, and honestly it's very, very, very annoying to put up with in this game, especially because, see, in this game, all of the, like the Lycan, this enemy's hit points compared to Kingdom Rush Original, when you play on veteran mode, they did a little bit of trading with respect to some of the attack damage and the hit points. So on veteran and the Kingdom Rush, the Abomination had 3,000 hit points and then 35 to 45. But in this game, they have it 2,500, 500 points less than what you would have on veteran in the original Kingdom Rush, and then they have 45 to 55 attack damage, a 10 attack damage increase. So they did that, and in my opinion, is because of the fact that they have the moon. But that higher attack damage that they have just makes them all the much more tougher to deal with low-level barracks in this game as well. But the fact that they do that 250 true damage, so that means units like Assassins, which are Assassins are the units that most people will probably go with over Templars, as they're, that's the best unit for getting rid of enemies, and as well as just the pickpocketing. Their abilities are more pleasing to most people. So Assassins would be decimated by one Abomination. So, and then not only that, if you even exploit using the Necromancer Tower to have, skeletons and even a Death Rider around, this enemy, when you get hordes of these Abominations, they really mess up a lot of they can really mess up your gameplay. A good example of that is on the heroic stage of Dust Chateau. I cannot tell you how frustrating it is to put up with this enemy, and that's what makes it hard, is because of the Abomination. They take a while to kill off, and I feel like they're harder to deal with in this game than they are in Kingdom Rush, because in Kingdom Rush Original, you had the maze towers where you could exploit using that ability of lowering their armor. So in this game, you can't do that. So you have to deal with a low armor. It's low armor, but it's still armored, and it has a pretty significant amount of hit points, and then at the same time it explodes, dealing true damage, decimating hordes of hordes of your units that are in front of it, and that's what makes it very frustrating. Plus with that moon, it's just really a nightmare. They move faster, obviously, with that moon. They're just really tough to stop, and they're really frustrating to deal with. And I can see why stages like Dust Chateau is another stage, even like the Desecrated Grove is even somewhat tough because of this enemy. Let's hear what Voduke had to say on this.
The Abomination by itself is not the toughest enemy to kill. It certainly takes a lot of firepower to do so, usually rain of fire or insta-kills, but it's not like they're any harder to kill than blood shells. In high numbers, they certainly demand a lot from your strategy, but what really makes this enemy troublesome is the explosion dealing 250 true damage whenever they die. Because of the randomly generated damage values of most attacks in this game, every tower can deal more or less damage the next time you do the exact same thing. So enemies will have taken more or less damage under the exact same conditions. Therefore, abominations will have different amounts of health at different points on the path, therefore exploding at a different time. This makes it extremely difficult to form a strategy that works consistently, especially when trying to pull off challenges like speedruns. Any of the previous enemies on this list could be defeated with strategy, but strategy alone cannot circumvent bad luck. The Vampiressa, who could survive Lucrezia's attack with bad luck, the Bloodshells, who could take longer to insta-kill if Death Strike never triggers, and the Abominations, who can explode at different times, all have an element of RNG to them. But where Vampiressa could still be finished off with an Archer Tower, and how Bloodshells could always inevitably die to enough assassins or enough magic damage, Abominations dying at different parts of a level at different times is something that can start a chain reaction, far more dangerous and harder to control. If your units die to the explosion at a bad time, the choke point can be lost, the enemies can get out of range of a powerful attack, and many more disasters can arise from one inconsistency. This risk is posed so many times because of how often abominations appear. They have to be the most dangerous enemy in Frontiers for me.
Well, all right, folks. Thank you very much, Voduke, for that collab, and that concludes it, folks. That was our top 10 enemies that we ranked in Kingdom Rush as being the most annoying. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I really appreciate that collab with you, Voduke. It means a lot to me. Thank you, folks, again. Much love to you, and I really appreciate your undivided attention. That concludes it, and I thank you, folks, again for watching. Have a good one. Take care. Farewell, and feel free to get in the comment section and voice your opinion on what you feel is your top 10, your list for annoying enemies. But I definitely look forward to doing more collabs with you again, Voduke, and to other people as well that I did having to mention to do collabs with. Thank you, folks, again. Stay tuned for watching. This was Ricky the War Champion along with Voduke. Folks, take care. Farewell.